In episode 4, the girls bury that body they found. Doesn't really put Lottie's mind at ease. She knows that bad things happen in that place. But the group has a big issue. They're running out of food. The good news is they have a gun, but nobody knows how to use it. They don't have to worry about bullets because whoever lived there before was hunkering down like it was the apocalypse. So they've got plenty of ammunition to practice with. And they're going to need to practice because they're going to need somebody out there hunting for them. One by one, the girls start practicing. None of them are very good at it. Travis goes, and he's fairly decent. And then he hands the rifle off to Nat. But Natalie feels weird about guns. Her father was a douchebag. When he came home one day and caught her and Kevin in her room together, doing absolutely nothing but listening to music, he flipped out. He started calling Natalie a whore, questioning who he raised, and then even beating on her mother when her mother tried to defend her. Natalie went and grabbed the family shotgun to try to make him stop, but he laughed at it, grabbing it back. He started insulting them as he was leaving, and Natalie threw an insult back. When he turned around, he tripped, shotgun went off, blew half his face off. So yeah, she's not real comfortable around guns. So when she chokes, Travis, not knowing any of that, ends up insulting her, telling her she should stick to stuff she's good at, like folding laundry or sucking on things. And that's when Nat grabs the gun, says, "I'm going again," and nails it. After practicing their balance using a quarter, they move on to actually shooting the gun at cans. Travis, once again, does a fairly decent job. Natalie, on the other hand, nails every single can. It's pretty clear that out of the whole group, the two best shooters are Natalie and Travis. Ben ends up giving them the rifle, telling them to work as a team, but please, for the love of God, bring back food. The two people noticeably absent from this shooting challenge are Javi and Shauna. Javi finds Shauna writing in her journal, and he questions why she's not practicing with the gun. She tells him, "I'm really not meant to use firearms." She ends up tearing some of the pages out of her journal and giving them to Javi to encourage him to do the same thing. Write what's going on. But over with Javi's brother, Travis, even though he was told to work as a team, that's not really his thing. He's walking away from Natalie, and he appears to be a man on a mission. And in fact, he is. He walks all the way back to the crash site. But that's because his father was buried with their grandfather's ring on him. Travis, seeing what the death of their father did to Javi, needs to bring it back for him. So he headed to the crash site to dig up that body and grab that ring. When Natalie hears the reason why he came back, she decides to help. They get down to the body, and Travis can't bring himself to actually do it. So Natalie ends up doing it for him. That simple gesture really forged their friendship. All of a sudden, Travis stops being a dick to her. As they make their way back to camp, they end up seeing a deer. Natalie ends up killing it, and now they've got dinner for the night. As those two were out trying to find dinner for the group needed some alternatives in case they came up empty. They start looking for some edible plants. One of the girls on the team, named Akila, used to be a Girl Scout, so she's pretty well versed in what plants will kill you and which ones won't. But as they walk through the forest, Misty is getting impatient. She says to Akila, "Can you just show us something that is edible so we can get going?" And the girls start questioning what's the rush. Vanessa jokes, "Oh, well, Coach must need a sponge bath," because Misty has been acting as Ben's caregiver. Misty, though, doesn't really find the joke funny and starts to walk off. As Misty walks right past Lottie, Lottie ends up seeing that symbol once again carved into the tree. But she doesn't really focus on it very long because she hears Jackie yell, "Oh my God, guys, come over here." And when the group reassembles, there's a small airplane in the middle of the woods. They figure it must have belonged to the guy that they found in the attic. Laura Lee hops in the cockpit. They start messing around with it. And with a turn of a propeller and a turn of a key, the thing turns on. But Laura Lee starts moving the plane forward. She can't figure out how to make that stop. And that propeller is pretty damn dangerous. Jackie ends up pushing Vanessa out of the way so she doesn't get hit by it. When she does that, though, she's kind of transfixed by the propeller. She's just frozen still. Luckily for her, the plane ends up getting caught up in the vines and just stopping right before it chews her up. She's pretty freaked out. Most of the girls are. And Lottie says it didn't want him to leave. The group then collects some shrubs, just in case Travis and Natalie end up striking out and going back to camp. But Travis and Natalie don't strike out. They bring back the deer that was caught, but there's one issue. Now what do you do with it? Ben tells them we got to bleed it out and asks for a volunteer to cut the deer's throat. Misty excitedly throws her hand up, but Ben acts like he doesn't see it and gives the blade to Shauna. This really pisses Misty off. And that night, as everybody is enjoying the fruits of Natalie and Travis's labor, as Ben gets up to go back in the cabin, Misty trips him. She's trying to do a little bit of Munchausen syndrome, and it seems like Ben knows that he was tripped on purpose. But back with present-day Misty, she decides to go check up on her friend, or at least someone she thinks she's friends with, Natalie. She actually pulls up an article about what to say to somebody when they're dealing with somebody's suicide. Natalie, however, doesn't really want to talk to Misty. Misty even asks her to hang out, but Natalie says, no, I have plans. And when Misty tries to ask, with who, Natalie blows her off and says, none of your business. And it wasn't like Natalie is lying. She does have plans that night, but during the day, she goes back home. She checks up on her mother, who is not doing well health-wise at all. But being back in that small trailer has a rush of memories fly back to her, mainly from the day that her dad died. She came there, though, with a purpose. She looks around her old bedroom and finds it. It's a cassette tape that Kevin had made for her back in the day. The reason why she needs it? She's meeting Kevin that night for dinner. The first thing she does is apologize to Kevin for the whole catfishing situation. They then get into what exactly Natalie was doing up in God knows what, getting arrested for B&E, and how Kevin became a cop. But little do they know that the whole time, they're being watched. Misty ended up following them there. But they're not being watched just by Misty. They're also being watched by Jessica Roberts, and Misty sees her at the bar sitting there. And Misty wants to alert Natalie to that fact, so she texts her, but Natalie doesn't see it. She then calls Natalie, but Natalie ignores the call. Misty has no choice but to just sit back and enjoy her martini. Eventually, this reunion does end. Kevin and Natalie get up, and that's when Kevin recognizes Misty outside. Natalie storms up to Misty, demanding to know what she's doing there, and Misty tells her, you see that reporter over there? That's Jessica Roberts. She's been following you. Natalie, though, doesn't really care. She's more annoyed about Misty's intrusion into her life. She tells Misty, go home, and then walks back over to Kevin. Now that they're back alone and out of the eye of Misty, Natalie gives Kevin the cassette tape. That's a blast from the past that he was not expecting. But the question that's been on his mind the entire time is, what the hell happened to them? Because they were best friends. And the last time he saw her, she was getting out of his car saying, I'll call you tomorrow, and that never happened. He doesn't even give her time to answer. He asks her, you had to know that I was obsessed with you, right? And then he goes in to kiss her, but she pulls back, telling him that all she can think of right now is Travis, and it's not the right time. She just doesn't know if it was murder or suicide. She's pretty convinced it was murder, though. He, being a detective, offers to pull the toxicology reports and try to find out the answers. Kevin then walks Natalie to her car, and she does end up kissing him, sending him extremely mixed signals. But back over at that restaurant, Misty did not go home. She ends up storming up to Jessica Roberts and saying, I don't know what you're doing here, but I've got my eye on you. Jessica isn't too fazed by this. She asks Misty, how was your little trip up north? Misty doesn't answer the question and tells Jessica, I know you see somebody that you don't think you should be afraid of, but you're wrong. Jessica just agrees and walks off. Over with Jessica's employer, Thaisa, she's getting ready for a big benefit dinner. She's trying to learn all the information about these big donors so that she doesn't look foolish when she meets them. Simone is helping her prep, but as Thaisa is getting ready, she looks over in the armoire and she sees Sammy just staring at her, and in like a creepy way. Ty doesn't really have time to focus on her creepy kid, though. She's too stressed out. So far, she's tanking in the polls, but there's a donor at this dinner whose money could really influence this election. Ty needs that money. Simone and Ty then go to this dinner, and the host greets him, but tells him, get comfortable. Dinner is going to be amazing. It's a whole roasted pig. That is a slight issue for Ty. She's a vegetarian. I guess after you kind of eat your friends, you tend to not want to eat meat ever again. People at this dinner start walking up to her, asking her questions, but the whole time, she's on the lookout for this big donor, Diane Raffleson. Problem is, every time she tries to go over to Diane, she gets stopped by somebody else looking to talk to her. She doesn't want to be rude to the constituents, so she ends up having way too many conversations until eventually it becomes too much and she has to go to a separate room just to kind of get away from it all. And ironically, that's when she finally gets her one-on-one with Diane. As Ty is smoking a cigarette, trying to take the edge off, Diane walks in and says, hey, can I get one of those? And Ty excitedly says, yeah, of course. They both mention how they've been trying to talk to each other all night, but they just haven't had the opportunity until now. The conversation between the two women starts off great. Diane tells Ty how big of a fan she is of her, and she is willing to throw her backing behind her. But then Diane starts putting some seeds in the ground, saying how people like to confide in her. She has secrets that she's never told. And what Diane really wants is, in exchange for her support of Taissa, she wants to know what really happened out there. The cannibalism thing has always been rumored, but never proven. The girls have always stuck to the same story. At first, Ty does try to give her the official statement that Diane already knows, but when Diane tries to pry more, Ty lashes out, saying, why? Why do you get that? Because you're rich and powerful? And that's exactly what Diane thinks. She starts going over her resume on why Ty should show her respect, and Ty tells her to go F herself and walks off. And then finally, there's Shauna. Oh, Shauna definitely did the damn thing with Adam. It looks like he gave it to her for a whole 4.5 minutes. Attaboy. But that meeting isn't going to be a one-off. The next night, they actually hang out, and they act like teenagers. They park Adam's truck in a liquor store parking lot and ask somebody else to buy them alcohol. They then go play some miniature golf, which Adam is terrible at. They even go skinny dipping, jumping off a bridge into a body of water below. And they wrap up the night with a little car sex. When Shauna gets home, she's just about to open up the door when she gets a phone call from someone she hasn't talked to in a long time. Misty. Shauna is kind of like everybody else. She isn't too thrilled to hear from Misty. She has Misty get to the point of her phone call, and Misty says, just thought you'd want to know, Travis is dead. And that really does seem to affect Shauna, because when she walks in and Jeff says hello to her, she doesn't have anything to say. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.